Hello, thank you for joining us today. We will be going live in just a few minutes. I'll give everyone a minute to get settled, join in, tell us where you're from, and we'll start the webinar in just a minute. If you're just joining, we're waiting for a few more people to roll in. We'll get started here in just a minute. Today's webinar is preparing your CX org for busy season, and we're going to go over some expert tips for success. If you're in the chat, let us know where you're from, city or company. Either would be interesting, I think, to hear from you, and we'll get started in just a minute here. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We are talking about preparing your CX org for busy season. We're going to go over some expert tips to help you get your team in the best state possible. A little housekeeping, the chat is over to your right. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat or in the Q&A section. We will be fielding those during the webinar, and we'll also try to answer some of those at the end of the webinar. So getting started here, we're going to go over the agenda. First, we're going to do introductions for today's speakers. We're going to define what peak season actually means. You'll hear this throughout the webinar. Peak season and busy season kind of intertwined. Those are the same thing in our opinion, but in case you hear the difference, that's what that is. And then we're going to break this up into 9 to 12 months out. So if you have a lot of time to plan before your busy season comes up, we'll give you some tips for that. 3 to 6 months out. And then if you're in the thick of it now, getting ready for the holiday season, some things that you can do to prepare right now. At the end of it, we'll go over our Q&A and let us know, again, if you have any questions throughout the chat. In the chat, you do not have to wait till the end of the webinar for that. All right, so first, I'm going to introduce our wonderful speakers today. We have Lindsay Highfield, who is our Director of Customer Success here at Forethought. And we have Bron Rasmussen, who is the CX Operations at Cotopaxi. So I'm going to shoot it over to you, Bron, to do a little quick intro for yourself and tell everybody what Cotopaxi is.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me. So I work for Cotopaxi. I'm the CX operations guy on that side of things. So for those that don't know, Cotopaxi is an outdoor gear and travel brand. We focus a lot on sustainability as well as giving back to those that are less fortunate than us. So our big goal is we give a lot of money to our foundation, which we allocate at least 1% of our 1% of our net revenues to this foundation. It does all sorts of different things. Some of our foundation partners are the Range of Motion Project, which is helping amputees gain their limbs back. We also do a lot of work with, it used to be formerly known as Nothing But Net, which is now United to Beat Malaria. So if you look at these pictures, you can kind of see the fun color schemes that we have going on. That's us using a lot of remnant and recycled materials to put our products together. We are a certified B Corp of 9 years, so that's amazing to see. And if you guys have not already heard about us, I encourage you to go on our website, look at our impact report. It's a little lengthy, but there's a lot of good information on there about what we do and what we stand for. So that's a little bit about me. I'll pass it back to you, Lindsay.
Awesome. Thanks, Ron. Yes, we love Cotopaxi over here at Forethought. And thank you, Michelle. This is going to be fun to really dig in and talk about how you guys approach busy season planning. But before we jump into that, I want to just do a quick run through of who Forethought is in case there are folks here on the call who are not familiar. We are a complete human-centered generative AI solution for customer experience. We're trained on your organization's unique data, which makes us a bit unique. Through our platform, we have 4 core products: Discover, Solve, Triage, and Agent Assist, which delivers natural conversations through AI to help deflect and contain customers with self-service opportunities and eliminate inefficiencies to improve things like response times, resolution rates, and overall customer satisfaction scores. So I'm sure we'll have a chance to touch on a few of these in today's discussion, as we do have the pleasure of being AI partners with Cotopaxi to continue elevating their customer experience. The main topic of today's conversation is around busy or peak season, as Michelle mentioned. We want to first kind of just set the stage and define what that is. Essentially, what we're talking about is whatever time in your organization's calendar year where you tend to see spikes of traffic or increased volume of support tickets coming into your queues. This tends to be like the Super Bowl of your business, requires an all hands on deck approach to really ensuring a successful season. So Bron, I imagine for you guys, this is probably quickly approaching here as we get into Q4.
Yeah, we're as Michelle said, we're getting to the thick of it. We're not quite there, but being a retail-based company, we're swiftly coming up on that deadline. So we're working to get everything dialed in and ready to go pretty much now. So that way, when peak season hits for us, it's not a guessing game.
Yeah, I hear that. A lot of our retail, e-com, logistics, travel, hospitality. I feel like you guys are all in the same boat, really prepping for end of year surge of traffic and tickets. We service a lot of different industries at Forethought. So for our HR tech, fintech, insurance folks, we know your open enrollment time, you tend to see an increase in volume. Our healthcare SaaS orgs early in the year when new budgets come out, fresh new deductibles and options are available. That tends to be the busy time. And then education right around when school starts, students are back in the classroom. Apps are being highly utilized. Those peaks come and go. So as Michelle mentioned, we're going to kind of look at this and talk about this in increments. So we'll start just kind of 9 to 12 months out. How do we prep? How do we prepare for that extra traffic? So let's just, jump right in here. I think early on, analyzing data and trends is kind of key, right? You just came off of that peak. What worked? What didn't work? What were the reasons customers were reaching out to support? Where were they reaching out and why? Looking into ways you can optimize the customer experience to be more proactive versus reactive to their needs. I really look at it as a time to communicate and work cross-functionally to learn and adapt. At Forethought, we also see this window as a really good opportunity to test and experiment with technology. So if you haven't looked into an AI solution or looked at investing in AI, this is a really good time to trial, POV, look at your organization pretty granularly to see where AI can help. Other things that come to mind are like trainings, ensuring your teams are highly trained for content, information, knowledge to really help them prepare for this wave. But Bron, what do you guys look for? What's kind of top of mind for you as you are gearing up for busy?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing I feel like that I've learned, and especially the previous seasons, is to expect the unexpected. I feel like that's one thing is there's always something I feel like that will go wrong. Whether, the scale of it is, who knows what it'll be. But I would say the one thing that has gotten us into trouble in the past that we've learned from that mistake is to never feel like you're set. It's always going to be like a constant and continuous growth. Especially when you're dealing with either, your promotions or, this year it's going to be our, working with you guys and kind of our AI side of things. But yeah, just making sure you have all your ducks in a row and never feeling like you're going to be set, because I feel like that's where you get into trouble with it.
I love that. Yeah. Expect the unexpected for sure. How do you guys approach kind of goal setting at this point? Do you start relatively quickly after the previous busy season ends and get right into setting your goals? How are you guys approaching milestones and goal setting as you lean into the closer months?
Yeah, and this one's been kind of an interesting topic with us recently. So typically we'll set our goals at the beginning of the year,
Okay.
and then we'll kind of roll through the year and see what we can make happen. We have had definitely some challenges on our side of things this year, so we've had to adjust our goals a few times. So I would make sure that was there's number 8 on that list. Is one thing is don't be afraid to change those goals.
Hmm.
Um, we all want to achieve the original goals that we set forward and strive to be the best that we can, but at the same time sometimes you just need to take a step back, realize what your capacity is. Your needs will be changing. What you set 8 months ago as a goal might not even be realistically possible now, or it might be you might be undershooting yourself. You can shoot for the moon at this point. So I'd say that's the one tip that we have is don't be afraid to change those goals, and definitely set milestones. It's not going to be one big push that you're going to do. You're not going to go from 0 to 100 in 3 days.
Yep, love that. We're big goal setters on our side too, whether it's on the success side with the customer success managers working with our customers on how are you thinking about the next 3 months versus the next 6 months, so on and so forth. Love being agile there and nimble and knowing that those can shift and move as needs change. So setting clear goals, working backwards, I would say that is a very clear, consistent way to stay on track and make sure everything gets deployed and released on time. So one thing we see as being very beneficial is your knowledge base. So whether or not you have AI as part of your strategy now, or really any self-service, investing in your knowledge base is key. Advancements in LLMs and generative AI has really allowed knowledge to be a powerful first step into getting smart, accurate, what we call AI agents established for your organization. Having a really solid knowledge base, I say, gives kind of your AI brain a good foundation to learn upon, right? You can continuously pump in new content, new information to be utilized in your chatbot experience to make it very conversational and the content really digestible. What is y'all's approach in terms of how you utilize your knowledge for self-service?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing, one, is if you don't have your knowledge base, especially if it's pretty bare bones, I would work on getting it up to date as much as you can, because I truly feel like the knowledge base is your first step into your self-service rate. Even if you're not leveraging a tool like Forethought with AI capabilities, this is still a place that customers can go and search for the information that they need and possibly reduce the number of tickets that you have. But again, the other thing I would say is, just kind of like the goal setting that always changes, is your knowledge base is always going to be changing as well. Once it's up and going, information will change. There's going to be new FAQs that you possibly need to add. This is one thing I wouldn't say, like, if you schedule out, a week or two to really set it up and get it going, that's the only time you're ever going to spend on it. We have a ton of articles here at Cotopaxi, and I find myself in there auditing, adding, deleting, just based off of, where the company's gone, the products that we have, the promotions that we're doing. So it really is just like an ever evolving knowledge base.
Yeah, I love that. I always say too, if you don't have a knowledge base, you mentioned the FAQs. There are those kind of commonly asked questions your agents are likely answering over and over and just need to be documented. Really starting there, lowest hanging fruit, getting those created and then building upon those, bootstrapping that with your team as well to pump out as many as possible. In this time frame, that's a good use of your team's time. Forethought also has an insights and analytics tool as part of our platform called Discover. It has a really cool actionable automation feature, which helps generate policies and generate knowledge content. If you don't have a good solid knowledge base that's based off how your agents had traditionally answered tickets. So something to think about. If that's a place you're struggling, we'd love to kind of show you what that tool could do to help get you a starting point on getting that knowledge base in a good place. Are you currently using this today within Cotopaxi?
Yes. Yeah, we've used it quite a few times. So within Discover, I don't think it's on the screen here, but there's a little app of sorts called Knowledge Gap.
Mhm.
And that's essentially, you go in and it'll outline all the different things that AI or Forethought has said. Like, we're seeing a lot of tickets come in for this that aren't necessarily getting covered. Here's the topic, and it'll essentially write you an AI article, that thinks will cover a lot of those tickets. You obviously need to go in, tweak it, make it your own. But it's a super helpful tool to quickly finding holes, especially if, when we're talking about busy season, if, you have a promo or something, anything that goes awry and you have a lot of tickets coming in quick that you need a quick solve for, this is awesome because it'll give you the structure, and all you have to do is go in, tweak it a little bit, and then you can implement it and get these customers some help ASAP.
Yeah, I love that. We're also seeing within Discover some pretty cool kind of filter capabilities. So what Discover is doing is looking at all of your historical tickets that have come in, all of your written tickets, and providing you a pretty granular taxonomy. You can filter that taxonomy down by things like full contact resolution, first contact resolution. There's a lot of different KPI metrics you can look at, and really kind of gives you some indicators of, hey, this topic, my agents are only having to respond back once, or, responding back really quickly to get them to a full resolution. There may be something there. Maybe that could be a knowledge article. Maybe that could be a guided flow. Maybe there's some automation, some backend systems we can connect to get customers that information through something like a chatbot or email automation. So some pretty cool stuff. It just kind of goes back to looking in the data, analyzing trends, kind of pinpointing when and why customers were coming in the first place. So really, as the screen says here, it's just using AI wisely to get a good look at kind of what's going on and what are good indicators of things that can be automated. So yeah, I mean, now that we've kind of had a good starting point, I think now we're in this 3 to 6 months out. What are the key focus areas here? Bron, are you guys thinking about hiring at this point in the year? What is y'all's approach here?
Yeah, so this is about that time of year. We're actually a little past it for the hiring portion. Like I said, our busy season is obviously going to be Black Friday through the holidays, and then kind of the start of the new year with returns and stuff. But we look at it as approach of, it might take 6 to 8 weeks to get someone onboarded and trained. But just because they're trained, they're not necessarily going to be the most efficient they can be. So we go with the approach that we hire a little earlier, we get them onboarded and ready to go, and then they have a sufficient amount of time, usually another 4 to 6 weeks of, on the ground, training. They're in it, just to make sure they're efficient. And then that way we don't feel like we're throwing them into the ring of fire when, fresh out of training, it's right into our inbox with Black Friday promotions. So
yeah, makes sense. I mean, I think even at this phase, you may not be necessarily like hiring for the seasonal folks, but even prepping for your your managers, your leads, your trainers that are really needing to get all of this content put together. Promoting tenured agents, maybe that have been with you for a while, upskilling them to help run your AI program. We've seen really good, successful, experiences at our current customers that have done that and really, provided additional career paths, which is pretty cool to see. So, I think starting early, thinking about hiring, make sure you're looking at, using your workforce management tools, looking at your staff, what you used previously, and kind of gearing up for that seasonal hiring is huge. Looking at metrics is something I think everyone is doing. I think all of our customers are data driven. We ourselves are very data driven at Forethought. So this is another key one that we want to highlight, is just really ensuring that you've got your reporting solid. You kind of double check on what KPIs are important to your organization, to your leadership team. What is the cadence they want to receive that information? What are your team's North Star metrics? Kind of hone in on those, ensure your tooling is able to get that for you. Forethought, we do provide a lot of analytics, insights, data for your data team to have access to, product teams, leadership teams, all of that. We have a CX metrics guide that we just released a couple of weeks ago that has some really helpful kind of information and aids to those sort of conversations. But curious for you guys, how and what are you guys using in terms of like performance reporting metrics for CX?
Yeah, so the main things that we're using right now are going to be CSAT and deflection rates. So I would say, going through and trying to, tweak those one by one. The one thing I would recommend is like definitely take your time when you're going through and doing those things, because if you change, 8 to 10 different things at a time, it's going to be really hard to dial in on what change that you made is actually making any sort of difference. So it's a time-consuming process. So I just, I want to emphasize, don't feel like you can jump in and pull all sorts of reports together, especially if you're changing things. It's I've been doing a bunch of reports for the better part of 6 months, and it's just finally starting to get to where I want it to. So that's my one tip is don't rush things. But also when you're building these reports is, as Lindsay said, you might be sending this out to your data team or your consumer insights team. But there's a lot of information that, especially me building a lot of these reports and, pulling the data is I like to dig into the whys. If our CSAT's a 3, I want to dig into why that is. If we're looking at our deflection rates, I want to go through the tickets and look, why was this one deflected? Why was this one not? And really get an understanding of how the system works and why the reports are saying that are giving the numbers that they are.
I think that's such great advice. Yes, I totally agree. Try to narrow it down, key kind of 4 to 5, hone in on those as your North Star metrics, and then see what story the data is telling you. Forethought has invested a lot of time and resourcing into ensuring transparency here. Our customers know we've released deflection insights. We have relevancy scores. We're using our AI to really try to give you that why are customers, rating a certain conversation or interaction the way they are? Why are, certain customers deflecting and others not? But yeah, deflection, CSAT, I think from an AI, deflection strategy standpoint, those are 2 that are pretty common. I mentioned our relevancy rating. We do have engagement ratings, helpfulness from our assist tool. We do recall and precision for our triage, which is our intelligent routing. So utilizing our AI to label and predict, the topic of the ticket to ensure it gets to the right agent, and you can reduce, reroutes and things like that. So again, we're constantly looking at metrics and adding those based on customer needs and just changes in the industry. So big one to kind of keep your eye on, secure what those metrics are going to be, and plan for how you want to do that reporting. I think also at this time, we talked about kind of investing in your knowledge base, earlier in the year, 9 to 12 months out. I think in this 3 to 6 months, it's now looking at your seasonal articles. What are the new content updates to your content that's going to be needed? I imagine for you guys, this does change just based off sheer volume and things like that. But talk to us a little bit about how you guys approach updating your content and things for the seasonality.
Yeah. So again, this has already started for us because we're about to jump into it. But my big push right now is just making sure I have all of these things built and ready to go. Like I said, I really want to emphasize, try to be, proactive rather than reactive in this time. So, go through, build your return window extensions, your cyber week promotions. As soon as you have this information, it's a good idea to go in and build it now. With the platform we use in a lot of other knowledge bases, and as well as Forethought, we can build these articles and these intents beforehand and leave them almost in like a dormant stage. As soon as it's time, all you have to do is hit the button and it'll start filtering tickets through it. And then again, another plug for the knowledge gap tool that I mentioned earlier is just use that to find the gaps that you had from last year. What tickets in the influx, you can set your time frame. What tickets are not getting the attention they need that are automatically getting routed to your agents that you feel like could be deflected before they even get to them.
Yeah. No, I love the proactiveness of this. And I have a special place in my heart for content teams. They spend a lot of time, effort, right, getting those knowledge articles to a really good place for majority of the time. So sometimes using our auto flows or a workflow even to create that seasonal content, right? So you don't have to fully change your knowledge article. You can maybe just reduce that from the ingestion of the AI and just use your auto flow at that point, or vice versa. If it's really easy to update your content, update it there. But yeah, planning is key, and leave it in that unpublished state. You kind of have your list of things you're expecting to need to activate once your kind of busy season kicks in, and then once it rolls out and you get back to your standard response times or shipping times or whatever it may be, you can roll back to your original content. So I think that that makes a lot of sense. And in this time, I think you're really starting to gear up on scheduling, right? I know this one's always kind of tricky. Workforce management is such a hot topic, especially with, AI kind of being part of the picture now. So how best can you schedule your teams to have them be the most efficient? Some tips we've heard from customers that I thought were really interesting were, cross training on multiple channels. So being able to be really nimble, depending on where your customers are coming in. Chatbot experience is a very hot and heavy one right now, right? Getting 24/7 access to content and information and self-service material. Having your chats manned at a certain stance versus having your voice or your email channels, but being able to kind of move them around as needed. So I like that kind of cross training amongst your channels. I think prioritizing queues is a big one I've heard as well this year, is kind of seeing how you want to address specialty queues or escalation queues for high value customers, enterprise customers, things like that. Where do you want to have any differentiation? Are you wanting to do skills-based routing or kind of first in, first out? So what other things have you kind of seen in terms of like scheduling and planning at this point?
Yeah, I mean, the four on the screen are fantastic. I would say the only other one that I could even think of is to use your staff to help you find all those holes that you're missing. There's no one better to help you find out what exactly is getting through to your queue than the people that are dealing with it themselves. So don't be afraid to jump in even yourself. Look at what's still making it through, and work on filling those holes for them.
Yeah, that's really, really good advice. Yeah, use the crew you have. There's lots of good insights that your current team has as well. So awesome. All right. I think next here is kind of in the same lens, revising policies, updating systems. As a director of customer success, this is a big one for me in terms of like setting realistic expectations. Under promise, over deliver is like the age old saying. So ensuring that your customers are going to have a delightful customer experience by being really transparent, right, around what are your cutoff dates? What are your shipping times? What are the changes to your policies, right? Never assume that the customer, just knows that this is going to change. So I'm a real big fan of like proactive communication and, over communicating and making sure that information is pushed out to your customers at this point. But anything that you would add at this, in terms of how you guys are looking at revising policies or system updates?
Yeah, I definitely want to hit on, I think that first one of the seasonal adjustments is a big one, especially with how, online shopping especially has become in the last couple of years. Definitely is a buyer's market per se. So, making sure that the policies that you do have, you relax them a little bit, because nearly every other retailer that might be in your same workspace is going to do the same things. Return or, extend your return windows, have some different gift return options, that sort of stuff. One thing we do is we keep a lot more tags on hand, because it seems like people take tags off really quickly on Christmas morning. So just, the stuff like that is just trying to be as relaxed as possible. But in the long run, it actually, it reduces your inbox, because you skip all those customers reaching out, asking for the return window extension, saying, I took the tags off, what do I do? So it's just, it's trying to think, even 3 months ahead of, what can we do now to help reduce, the after holidays rush when people are start life again, essentially. And then the other thing I would say is, just, communicate with, across all the different teams. Obviously, we're talking about CX here. A lot of us deal, I would say, primarily with CX, but making sure you talk with, your marketing team, your consumer insights team, making sure everyone's on the same page and has a lot of the same information. So that way, when, customers come to different branches of the company, they're getting the same information no matter where they go.
I love that consistent information and experience. That is definitely one I've been hearing the last, really, I feel like 6 to 8 months, especially with AI advancing into more channels, is where can we have a consistent experience, have the same information, getting to consumers, if they're on the help center, if they're in our app, if they're, in email, they're on our blog or our community, is it consistent? Are they getting the same body of information every time? So absolutely love that. All right, we're in the thick of it now, right? We're like 3 months out, go time, planning's been done, goals set, work's been done with the team for a while now here. How are you guys kicking things into gear, say that 6 to 8 weeks out from kind of your go live?
Yeah. I would say, oh man, that's such a good question. Right now, we are kind of in that spot that I feel like we're going to start wrapping things up as far as onboarding goes. But at the same time, that kind of, prompts the question of, what went good, what went bad. And I feel like, as the trainer, you're going to say, oh, everything went great. They didn't have any questions. It's kind of like that herd mentality, like everyone's just kind of quiet. But the biggest thing that we do is we gather lots of feedback from, the people that we had just onboarded, especially trying to go through the onboarding process. I don't know if people, if they tend to get scared or shy, but they typically don't want to speak out, especially in a larger group of newer hires. So even just taking them, aside in a one-on-one group and being like, what went well? We are trying to make this the best experience that we can. And, if you wait too long to do this, they're going to forget what went well, what didn't go well. So we work on trying to fill out and essentially plug the holes that we missed maybe in training. And we continue to do that through the first, even 2 months that they're working with us as they stumble across different tickets and situations that they might not have been trained properly for, they're not understanding fully. And that's, understanding what was missed is more than just like a one-time conversation. It seems like it's the better part of a 3-month conversation.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, part of your training too is like being really transparent is what options customers have. I think making sure your new onboards, new hires understand what role, if you have AI already implemented, what role that is playing, and how that impacts hopefully the types of tickets and interactions they're going to have with the customer base. I love the feedback piece. Consistently looking at feedback from your agents, from your new hires. Obviously, lots of feedback and CSAT and things happening on the AI side as well. But ensuring you have a good experience on both sides. It's interesting to see kind of the lines blurred a bit on really wanting to have a consistent experience, whether your customers are interacting with AI and getting information and content, or if they're interacting with your human agents and getting their issues resolved. So really the 6 to 8 weeks out is making sure we've got the staff in place, they're trained up, and ready to go. I think the other side is what we see if you have someone like Forethought as your AI partner. We have lots of kind of tips and tricks to ensure a successful launch or entry into peak season. Some of them are listed here, but like our banner, for instance, is one that we've built out and rolled out this year, which is just kind of planning and utilizing something like a banner in your widget experience, your chatbot experience that gives immediate information. We see this a lot in help centers, within apps, pop-ups as well. But that's a good way to kind of display relevant information to users right when they're kind of starting that support experience. Useful to help modify, your operational hours, your SLAs. Modifying your entry message and things as well is a good one to deploy out. Proactive prompts. So again, kind of engaging proactively with visitors on certain pages. So things like, cart pages are a big one where, proactively initiating the conversation with the customer to help them continue on that journey they're on is something, we want to make sure all of those are activated and ready to go. We've got things like our auto flows, which is our natural language workflows, utilizing those to have really conversational AI agent experiences that are very human-like, provides a really delightful experience. And then we have something like interactive email in our email channel, which allows consumers that are used to that channel and just naturally go to email and maybe have to wait hours or a day to get a response, giving them a chatbot experience in that channel to help them resolve their issues faster has been a really cool experience to see a lot of our customers using. And then lastly here, I know this one is one that's been top of mind for y'all, is what transactional things can be automated with our action builder. So is there information about where's my order, or returns, exchanges, things like that? Are there APIs that we can utilize to get that information in real time back to customers? I'm a mom of 2, work full time. I will tell you, my shopping is done from the hours of 10 p.m. to like 1 a.m. During the holidays, which I imagine I'm not the only one out there. So not always the times that support is manned. So it's nice to have that information on hand. But what else? What other advice would you have in terms of how you guys, Braun, have worked with your CSM or with Forethought to kind of prep for some of these things?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think whether you are a Forethought customer already, or if you are looking into signing on with Forethought, the CSMs here are like top level. And I'll do a shameless little plug for Hannah, because she is amazing to us. But seriously, the CSMs in this company they're here to help, and it is like beyond personalized experience. We sat down with our rep not too long ago and had a very detailed, essentially a busy season, outlook for this 2024 season. Helped us pull reports on what last year looked like, what holes we can fill, where she's seeing gaps, all that sort of stuff. So it's truly like an awesome experience, and they want you to succeed, and they are excited and happy, and they want you to hit your goals. And it's just, I feel like I haven't had that with other CSMs in other companies, who almost feel, I don't want to say annoyed, because I feel like annoyed is the wrong word, but they almost don't seem excited if you contact them. And I feel like that's not the case with the Forethought CSMs. And it is just a truly just remarkable experience we've had so far.
I love to hear that. Yeah, my team knows, as we've talked about in this webinar today, is success starts with a good plan. We do feel very heavily invested in our customer success. So we are more than happy to help prepare busy season plans, guides, 3-6 months out. What do we feel? What would we recommend as things to do to make sure that you're set up for success, right? Your success is our success. We truly do believe that. So we are here to help. My team is here to help. With Forethought, if you don't have an AI solution, we have a fabulous SE/AE team as well that can show you a demo. We can do a proof of concept or proof of value with your data, with your content, and show you what a AI experience could look like. It is a very short POV timeframe as well. We can do that in roughly 2 to 4 weeks. So if you haven't thought or deployed an AI strategy, we'd love to talk to you about that in more depth. But really appreciate you all hanging out with us today. Hope you found some of this information insightful, helpful. I'm on LinkedIn, Braun's on. Reach out to us anytime. I'm sure we'd be happy to have one-off conversations as well. But Michelle, I see you've joined. Thank you. I'll pass it to you.
Thank you. Thank you both for joining and hosting this webinar with us. This was super helpful. Lots of great tips. We did get a few direct questions, but before we go to those, I do want to plug the report that Lindsay mentioned earlier, our Decoding CX Metrics guide. This guide is helping you understand like the source of some metrics that CX orgs run or use these days, where they came from, how to measure them, why they're important. And there's some unsung heroes in there. Those are ones that we think maybe aren't measured as much, but could be interesting for your team to track. So I would definitely suggest giving that guide a look over. I did drop it in the chat as well, in case you want to directly click on that link. But back to the question. So we did get 2 direct questions. One of them I thought was really interesting. It says, our team is focused on the need for speed during the peak season. How should we balance that while ensuring our interactions still feel personalized and like people are talking to a human? Do either one of you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can take that one, Braun, if that's all right. Yeah, I love that question. I mean, the need for speed's obviously there, right? Quick, fast, concise responses. I know a lot of agents are working sometimes multiple tickets at a time. Personalization is a big highlight this year. I think it has been for the last couple of years. So as much information that we can pass to the agents, right? For them to have at their fingertips about the customer that they're interacting with in real time. So knowing their purchase history, when's the last time they submitted a ticket? Lots of different kind of metadata can help personalize that response. That's something we can do through Forethought, through our automations, is have that personalized experience, but also just I think having that at the fingertips of agents will help kind of check both boxes, ensure a speedy resolution, but have it be a personalized one, knowing that they have that information at their fingertips.
Yeah, and I can add a little bit to that too, if that's all right. I was an agent once too before this job, and I feel like the one thing that really slowed me down was the repetitive and monotonous questions that you feel like you had to answer over and over and over again. So that's been a huge, essentially upgrade is when we went to Forethought, was all of that low hanging fruit and doesn't really make it to the agents. So the tickets they are getting are genuine customers that are needing help that do require, I feel like, a little bit more, a little more thought behind it, and keeps the agents a little bit more engaged.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So you're utilizing Forethought, which can be a personalized experience, as I mentioned, to answer the low-hanging, educational, even like one-touch sort of transactional things, and really leaving the complex, cognitive, deep thinking issues to the agents, where maybe it's not speed that's the most important. It's getting a resolution in that first engagement, or right when they're connected with the agent. So I think AI probably helps kind of in both of those realms of speed and personalization. That's a good question.
It is a good question. That's perfect. Thank you both. The next question is directed at Braun. I think they caught on that you mentioned about your KB earlier and how you're managing that. So the question says, do you have a dedicated person on your team to help manage your KB? Our team struggles with finding the time to manage it. Do either of you have any tips to help us with keeping up with new topics? Which I think you kind of covered a little bit earlier, but feel free if you have anything else you want to add to that.
Yeah, and that's a great question and concern. I am the KB guy, so there's not a separate person on our team that handles that directly. Essentially, it's just on me when, especially when sales peak season comes around, to just make sure I go through and audit that. Every once in a while, especially in like the lull of a season, if, come March or even April, when things really start to slow down, and, maybe we don't have agents with a ticket in their fingers, every second of the day, sometimes we'll sign it out and be like, hey, read through, these 10 articles, and then, take note of what's right, what's wrong. And then, any changes you can forward over to me and I'll make, just so that we make sure, like I said earlier, we have a lot of articles. Sometimes a knowledge base it might only be 10 articles, which it's super easy to keep on top of. But at least with Cotopaxi, we have a ton of articles offering all sorts of different help, whether it's, order status, dealing with our foundation, all of our B Corp certifications. There's just a lot of information out there. So it's definitely, it's a time consuming process for us. But for the most part, it is fairly manageable. We're not changing our policies up super often. It's usually just this one time a year when things change up a little bit.
That's perfect. Thank you. And I do think we have time for one more question that just came in. So it says, thank you for the great insights. Do you find clients typically take a global approach to CX or a more regional, localized approach? For example, in the US versus Europe, how about at Cotopaxi? I don't know if either of you want to answer that question.
Yeah. Do you want to go first, Braun, for how Cotopaxi's?
You got that one. Sorry.
Okay, cool. It really depends. So I think one approach is if you have your content segmented by region. We do work with a lot of global customers. We will segment the experience based on that localized content. So there may be different policies, say in Europe, say in APAC, than you have in the US. So that would be really important. Our experience is also fully multilingual, so we can interact and respond back. I don't know how many languages. I feel like it's in the 60s, 70s now. There's a new one all the time. But yeah, pretty much any language we can interact and respond to. So yeah, it just kind of depends on how you have your content. If it is different, in different regions of the world, if it's pretty consistent, the holistic approach seems to be fine.
Yeah, and at least with Cotopaxi, we are based out of Salt Lake City, Utah. We'll ship to almost any country in the world from here, but we also do have a lot of international distributors. We have like a UK site, an EU site, a Japan site, a New Zealand site. There's all sorts of different ones, but they're managed essentially third party. So we don't get a lot of the inbound interactions from international customers in that sense, unless they ordered it directly from us at the Cotopaxi US site. So it's a little different than I think a lot of companies handle it, but.
It's a good question, though.
Perfect. I think that about wraps it up. I appreciate you all so much for joining again. Everyone who joined us today, thank you for coming. Please, if you have any questions, let us know if anything comes up after this. We will send the replay out to anyone who registered. And we'll also have some clips of this on our LinkedIn. If you're not following us, you should follow us at Forethought on LinkedIn. And we're excited to introduce our next webinar that we'll have next month. And you'll get an email about that shortly. Any other thoughts or questions before we wrap?
No, just want to say thank you again to Braun for joining today. And thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.
Yes, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.